Hi, everyone. This is Ron from POCculture.com. I'm here with Nobi Nakanishi, who plays Detective Ito in Marvel's Hit Monkey. Nobi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing, Ron?
Great, great. I'm excited to speak with you. I have to ask, how much Hit Monkey did you know before joining the project?
I knew of Hitmonkey. I did not ever get to pick up an issue, unfortunately, prior to the show. But I always knew of that concept, and I thought, wow, what a fascinating idea. And because I've been to Japan, obviously, and well, not obviously, but I've been to Japan. I've been to areas that do have snow monkeys, and I've seen them. So the idea that one was in a suit with guns chasing after people was just intriguing to me.
I love that. So actually, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. I know, you're primarily based in New York, but like you said, you traveled to Japan. How often have you gotten a chance to travel to Japan, and how familiar and kind of immersed are you in Japanese culture?
Well, I would like to think I'm fairly immersed. I went, when I was growing up, used to go like every year for a vacation, a couple of weeks in the summertime. There's a period like when I was in my teens, didn't go as much, but once I was in college and then once I was working, I started to go on my own more often, as a, drinking age. Traveler. But then over time, I started my own business, and then I actually had a few Japanese clients, and then really raised my Japanese level up to like business level. And then, and I think before the pandemic, I was going maybe like once, twice a year for work. So fairly immersed.
That's great. So speaking of drinking, let's talk about Detective Ito.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think it's what's so cool about this project is you have a show that's so immersed in Japanese culture and Japanese themes and aesthetics. Maybe 10 years ago, one or two Japanese actors get cast as part of the Yakuza or something, and then everybody else might be, non-Japanese. But here, that's not the case. So how exciting is it for you to be a part of this project that's part of the Marvel universe?
It's amazing. I mean, first of all, I mean, obviously being part of the Marvel universe, that's just kind of like, whoa, how could you ever imagine that, right? I mean, it's certainly amazing to put a little notch in the creative Marvel tree, but also, in terms of the character, yeah, being able to see these kind of characters come to life is definitely. I mean, I never expected it. I mean, but I never expected it here, I guess, because you do get to see that kind of representation, in the native countries, right? But here it's like it's always, yeah, like the often, not always, but often the sort of like, grunting Yakuza character who might get killed off or kill somebody and then disappears for the rest of the movie. But to have someone with like such like a checkered past and like, real pain inside, that's kind of coming out in strange ways as a detective, as a drinker, but then trying to write that within, to correct that within a story that involves chasing after a potential, assassin monkey. I mean, that's just, it's out there, but it's also amazingly genuine, and true, which has been great.
Yeah, I really love you pointing to that kind of dichotomy of in East Asia or Southeast Asia, representation for Asians is not a big deal, but
Mhm.
for us as Asian Americans and in American media, it's such a newfound thing. What do you hope that your Asian fans and just fans of all diverse backgrounds get from watching a project like this with so many diverse voices?
Well, I mean, like certainly you would hope that like, we would continue to have shows like this that really kind of push the boundaries of what someone's image might be, of an Asian person. Certainly, having done a bunch of these talks right now, it's like, it would be great to see more of, Asian American representation in the sense that, taking stories that don't necessarily just have to take place in Asia, they can happen here with the same kind of set of characters and storylines. I think hopefully we'll also see, it would be funny, to be honest, it'd be funny to start seeing Asian American remakes of movies from Asia. You know what I mean? Not like American remakes with like, Caucasian cast of a famous Asian movie, but like an American, Asian American cast spearheading, like a popular, like, the Snowpiercer, not Snowpiercer, sorry, that's not what I meant. what was the more recent one? I mean, for Squid Game, for example, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that with like an American, Asian American cast. That would be fun.
Yeah, I would love to see that. You know, hopefully we'll get to see you directing and writing and starring in something like that.
That would be great.
Now this cast, speaking of great cast, is incredible. I mean, George Takei, Olivia Munn, Ali Mackey. And so what was the production of this project like? I know obviously we're going through the pandemic. Did you get a chance to really connect with any of your co-stars and maybe form a bond with, particularly with any of them?
Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, not really. I mean, by the time we started, it was right before the pandemic. And then, you know, during the lockdown, you know, there were, you know, we were able to record, but, you know, there were many restrictions. So no one ever really saw each other. I did get to meet the wonderful Ali Mackey recently, but separately from the show. You know, it's just incredible, though, just to be on that list of legends. It's like it's like, you know, these legendary actors and voice actors, and then me. It is really bizarre, but you know, but to be sort of like standing amongst this group, man, I mean it is a dream come true. I mean, George Takei has been always like kind of a hero for me, you know, both on an entertainment front, but also, you know, politically, you know, he's very outspoken. He's just like a real role model, I think, for Asian Americans. And I would hope to be able to sort of do the kind of things that he's done over time. That would be great.
Yeah, I definitely admire all that he does for the Asian American community. And you held your own, by the way, you know, as Detective Ito. So don't sell yourself short. I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
What do you love about your character, and kind of what about the character did you most connect with on a personal level?
Ooh, aside from the drinking, no, I'm just kidding.
We talked about that.
Yeah, you know, for me, it was like I said, like I connected to him because, you know, he was so multifaceted, you know, and no one's a simple person. You know what I mean? We all have our sort of foibles, and we all have, you know, our weaknesses and things that are prejudices, all sorts of things. And I think that, you know, connecting to a real character is always easier than connecting to just like an archetype or a stereotype. So that was really nice, because on the page, even, you know, reading the pilot by, you know, Josh and Will, like, yeah, I could feel this guy. I could understand this guy. Like I could sort of see, even though I didn't know the entire story yet, I could see the foundation, like really strong foundation already being set there. And then like after that, it's just, you know, all that incredible direction that I was getting from them, and also Neil Holman, our director. It's we just, you know, I was really in a good spot to feel confident enough to bring in what I thought I could bring in. And that whole like conversation just kind of, you know, is what's responsible for what you see on screen and hear on screen.
That's great. I have two more questions for you. One is a little bit more serious and one is light.
Okay.
So on the serious side, I've heard you talk about your senior project and how you were set to direct this play, and the teachers didn't give it to you and said, Asians don't go into this field.
Yeah.
And that, it was just, it's so painful for me to hear you talk about that.
Wow, you really did your research. So,
no, absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate your journey, and I think it's so inspirational, because here you are now. And the easy question would be, what would you tell them now? But actually, that's not what I want to ask you. What I'd love to hear you talk about is, what would you tell the countless other diverse creatives who are fighting, clawing, you know, in this field and trying to make it in the industry and face that kind of resistance? What would you tell them to inspire them to keep going?
I mean, generally, I tell people to be persistent, but in this case, you know, I would say, like, you know, it's really about forging your identity, and also like understanding what you're really hungry for. You know, like you really need to know what, I mean, you know, you just can't go out and eat. You know, it's much more fun when you know what you want to eat, right? You know, you're craving like, you know, pho, or you're craving like, you know, katsukuri or something, right? The more you sort of understand what really drives you, it really takes a lot of self-reflection. then the easier time you'll have. For me, I'm a snacker. I love snacking. And that's how in this sort of, conversation, I would define myself as a snacker. I love to taste things. I love to taste good things. I love like immediate concentrated flavor, right? So whether or not it's like, savory or sweet, but I don't eat a lot, right? So for me, it's about, I get my satisfaction from being able to do a lot of different things. So whether or not it's directing 30-second commercial, for the city of New York, or doing, a series like this for Marvel. I mean, it's when I take a step back from it, yes, I see how crazy things are and how kind of like, diverse my life has been, and how certain opportunities are just so gigantic, right? But I try to always just stay in that moment, right, where I'm just like, I'm just hungry, I want a snack, and if I end up right, like at a good ramen joint, that's great. If I end up at Noma, right, the #1 restaurant in the world, that's great. But I think that the more you're sort of just kind of in that moment, the easier it is you're going to be able to get to those places, because the moment you start thinking of everything as like this institution or this huge thing that you need to climb, I think it makes it a lot more difficult, and perhaps you end up like setting yourself up for more disappointment than you really deserve to feel. So I mean, that's my convoluted sort of piece of advice. I could probably be a little more articulate over drinks with Ito, but that's what came to mind.
I think that's just an incredible answer. And I love your analogy because Nobi, you're in my head. My last question is,
yes,
where can I find the best Asian food or Japanese food in New York? It could be
Oh,
whatever,
wow. Okay. Well,
whatever
I'm in
you
LA
want with the
now.
kind of food. Oh, are you okay?
I'm in
Okay,
LA now, but if I was back in New York and I was looking for Asian food, can I tell you a restaurant that is no longer there? Is that okay?
sure. Yeah.
So sorry, everyone. This is not a place you can go to, but one of my favorite places in New York City for a long time was this place called Tokubei 86. It used to be on 86th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. Sorry, 2nd and 3rd Avenue, and it was a Japanese restaurant that was in basically the Germantown part of New York City on the Upper East Side, and it was around since 1976 or 77 or something like that. Closed, unfortunately, back in like 2014, but it was the most comforting place you could ever go to. And for me, it defined everything that I wanted in like a restaurant, a community, right, of regulars who love the space, love the food, love the other people, and then like super comforting food that wasn't, just kind of run of the mill stuff that you would see in any sort of Japanese menu, like really kind of like local things, like really like beautifully prepared kind of home dishes. Unfortunately, it is no longer there, but if people want to understand what it felt like, they can watch something like Midnight Diner Tokyo Stories on Netflix, which I think does a pretty good job capturing that feel. Is that good? Is that all right?
That's amazing. Thank you for that very thoughtful answer. And what a tragedy that we don't get to experience it. Thank you for the movie reference. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate chatting with you. Congratulations on a very cool show, and look forward to seeing more.
It was a real pleasure. Hope to talk to you again soon. Take care, Ron.
Likewise. Take care.